Hey folks, Brendan here from Bluelight with another Facebook Live for you to help improve your ability to pass the police recruitment process first time around. So this is going out live in the Bluelight Facebook group, which has got over 20,000 members. I know, incredible. If you want to find out how to join that group, if you're watching this on the replay, then check the links below. And if you want to find out more about the courses and the one-to-ones I talk about, then again, check the links below. So in this evening's Facebook Live, I want to talk to you about some of the advice that you give each other in the group. I know it's well-meaning. I know you want to help each other, but often it's awful. So people will post something and say, I've got my interview coming up for X-Force, Devon and Cornwall, Greater Manchester Police, whatever it might be. Has anyone got any advice? And there's so many of you, well-meaning, say things like, make sure you understand the competencies. Make sure you've got an answer for each one of the competencies and the values. Poor advice. And why is it poor advice? And why should you listen to me? Well, I've been doing this for 26 years now. I've been in the police sector for 37 years. And I've been helping people to succeed in specialist interviews, promotion boards. Now for 26 years, I've been helping people to succeed in the police recruitment process for 11 years. There's easily over 13,000 people in the police as a result of my support over the years. One-to-ones, seminars, webinars, online courses, it's all there, and I've helped so many of you, so I know what I'm talking about. So why is just knowing your competencies and why is just having an answer from each one of them such poor advice? Here's the argument against that advice. So to start with, you've got things like this. So if I dig out my competency and values framework, we've got this. I know it's all back to front because you're watching this on a live, but that's the competency and values framework, wheel of confusion. The wheel of confusion. It's got 4 values in the center. Values only have 1 level, but the competencies around it, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 competencies around it, they're in clusters of 2. Why they're in clusters of 2, I do not know, because the clusters have really big titles like resolute, compassionate and committed, intelligent, creative and informed policing, inclusive, enabling and visionary leadership. Bingo! It's like BS bingo, isn't it? It's not very helpful. So whilst the values have 1 level, all of the competencies within those clusters have 3 different levels. Why? I don't know. No one knows. Trust me, I've not come across anyone in the police who understands this. It's been authored by very nice, well-meaning people, but they're all very clever, but they lack some common sense, and it's so duplicitous. What do I mean by duplicitous? Well, I'll do some shout-outs in a moment, and I'll explain to you why it's so duplicitous and why it's so confusing, and ultimately what to do to clear that confusion and get your head out of that confusion zone. So let's do some shout outs first. Toto's watching, Rachel, we've got Samantha, we've got Hannah, we've got Jane, we've got Ben, Simon, Peter, is it Rod? We've got Rod, we've got Emily who's watching, we've got Iftar, I think I pronounced that right, Iftar. We've got Danielle and others who have just joined to watch. It's awesome to have you on board on this live this evening. So, and if any of this makes sense to you, please do love and like what I'm saying. Lets me know that people are actually listening to me. They're watching this and listening and learning. And please do ask, fire away with any comments. You're watching this live, so you've got the ability to ask any questions of me to do with interviews in the main, because I'd like to focus on interviews. But if it's about anything else, fire away with a question, and please do press that love and like button to let me know that, yeah, I like this, it makes sense. So first of all, let me give you an example of why we shouldn't just focus on knowing or understanding your competencies, because listen, I've got a master's in education where I focused on personnel evaluation systems. I'm an MVQ assessor, MVQ internal verifier. I've worked with what is now Skills for Justice on designing the police sector's first assessment strategy. I was on their qualifications and standards steering group for 2 years, the national one. So plenty of experience in this world. I don't understand this. I don't get it. I don't get why it's so duplicitous. Duplicitous, here's an example. So one of the popular questions that's often asked is, tell me about a time when you've had to make a difficult decision, where other people may not have agreed with you, or where you've had to account for that decision to others. Or it might just be quite simply, tell me about a time when you've had to make a difficult decision. I was asked that question in 1985 to join that police, and it's been asked so many times since, because being a police officer involves making difficult decisions. So tell me, folks, which competency or value is that from? Someone hazard a guess. I'll just leave it for a moment there. So difficult decisions, which competency or value is that from? I'll just have a little scroll up and down, see if anyone's able to answer that one. No? Well, shall I share with you? It's from several. So there's a total of 10. It's from 4 of them. It's from 4 of them. What do I mean by that? Well, if we take a look at impartiality to start with, Danielle is saying we take ownership. Is incorrect, actually, Danielle. In we take ownership, I'll check it, but I don't think there's any mention of decision making. But good that you've had a go. Thank you, Danielle. And welcome to Ben, who's just joined as well. So in impartiality, it talks about I make fair and objective decisions using the best available evidence. Decision making is made. So a question from the value of impartiality could be, can you tell me about a time when you've had to make a decision using the best source of evidence? Or actually, one of the questions that's often asked for promotion boards is, can you tell me about a time when you've had to make a decision where you weren't in possession of all the facts that you needed to make the decision? So they're after, sometimes you have to make imperfect decisions based on imperfect information. If we look at integrity, it talks about demonstrating courage and doing the right thing, even in challenging situations. That involves making decisions. You've got to make a decision to challenge someone's behaviour, or do the right thing. Ben's saying emotionally aware. No, it's not. This just highlights the confusion. So Ben and Danielle, thank you for having a good go, but it just highlights the confusion about which one of the competencies or values is decision making from. And the same goes for all sorts of other questions you might get asked. So if we look at transparency, the value of transparency, it talks about I ensure my decision making rationale is clear and considered so it's easily understood by others. So again, decision making. And then if we move into the world of the competencies, we get to analyse critically, where it talks about I refer to procedures and precedents as necessary before making decisions. And it also talks about analysing information in order to make decisions. So there you go. So if you're asked that question, you could be forgiven for wondering what value or competency does it come from. Now, the solution will come in a moment, folks. The solution will come in a moment. Equally, if we just look at, so I'm taking a look at the first competency after the values. Ben mentioned emotionally aware. Decision making isn't in emotionally aware, but they're not going to ask a question which is tell me about a time when you were emotionally aware. They're going to ask a question which is based on the behaviours within that competency. So we've got different questions that can come out of that one competency. One of them would be tell me about a time when you've had to deal with a conflict situation or a volatile situation between people, or tell me about a time when you've had to remain calm and deal with a situation where other people didn't agree with you or two people didn't agree with each other. But invariably they'll talk about a conflict situation. They're not talking about some argy-bargy outside a pub. They're talking about people who disagreed with you or disagreed with each other. That comes from the behaviour, I remain calm and think about how to best manage the situation when faced with provocation. You could be asked about a time when you've had to deal with a stressful situation. That comes from the behaviour, I understand my own emotions and know which situations might affect my ability to deal with stress and pressure. You could be asked the question, tell me why diversity, equality and inclusion is so important. This comes from the behaviour, I understand the value that diversity offers. Tell me about a time when you've had to change the style of your communication to meet the needs of others, to best understand others. That question comes from the behaviour, I seek to understand the thoughts and concerns of others, even when they are unable to express themselves clearly. So you see from that one competency, 4 completely different questions. 4 completely different questions. And I could go to any of them. If I just go to the value of transparency, it talks about decision making, but it also talks about recognising the value of feedback and acting upon it. So a legitimate question there would be, tell me about a time when you received feedback which was negative. How did you deal with it? But feedback's also mentioned in some of the other competencies as well. So anyway, I'm not going to go into this. They all overlap. They're all confusing. What do we need to do? What do we need to do? So Andrew and Lewis have just joined us as well. What do we need to do? We need to have a structured approach to answering our questions. And we need to have a bank of about 6 or 7 things that we've done in our life that we can utilise to as experiences that we can utilise to answer those questions. So Ben's actually saying, so in my answers in the interview, structure in the answers, situation, task, action. No, I don't recommend that because no one talks like that, and most of the people fall into the trap of the task I was set. Well, I don't want to hear about a task that you were set. I want to hear about something that you did where you gave 120%, where you didn't actually have to do so, where you decided that you were going to take action. So what I like, and this is something I've developed over the years, which has worked for thousands, is the Salku Model, which stands for situation, aim, actions, result, learning, knowledge and understanding. And I break down all of that in my interview course because there's subsections of each one, which will enable you to follow that template. It'll enable you to deliver a 4 or 5 minute long answer easily. So what I suggest is that you have scenarios where you've interacted with other people. So today I've been doing some one-to-one coaching. One of the examples someone gave was a first aid scenario. Well, the person they were giving first aid to was on death's door and he actually did die. And it was tragic for them, but it didn't demonstrate any behaviours, because all of the behaviours tend to lean towards times when you've interacted with other people. So we need to focus on scenarios where there's been other people involved, not someone who you gave first aid to who died. Tragic though it was, you know, must have been awful going through it, but it didn't demonstrate the behaviours that we're looking for. So we want examples that demonstrate the behaviours. And I've actually set this individual a series of things to consider from their past. Things like, and this list isn't exhaustive, there's more I gave them, but I'll just give you a few examples. Times when they dealt with a conflict situation, times when they made a difficult decision, times when they've had to plan and prioritise their time, time when they've had to do the right thing or challenge someone's behaviour, and others. So what we're focusing on is some common questions that come up all the time and being able to answer them in a structured way. And we've just done a stage 2 webinar this evening for the online assessment centre, and in several of the answers that people gave, for most of the individuals who gave those answers, the big thing that was missing was detail. So make sure you've got the detail in there about how you interacted with others. I know it might all sound a bit daunting, but join me on one of my courses. Join me, for goodness sake, on the webinars where we actually practice. Every week we run these webinars and you get access to previous recordings of those webinars to see other people practicing with me as well. It makes so much difference. I absolutely promise you it'll make so much difference. If it doesn't make a difference, just let me know in the first half an hour of the webinar and we'll part as friends. I'll give you a refund, but I know it'll make us such a difference. So join me on those webinars. Watch the previous recordings. You get over a year's worth of previous recordings and you get the online course. If you're watching this live, ask in the comments for the link, or if you're watching this on the replay, check the blurb below on YouTube or Facebook or whatever you're watching this on, and it'll take you to the courses that are going to make a huge difference. I promise you they're going to make a huge difference. If they don't, and you don't pass, and you've done the work, you'll get your money back. How fair is that? Honestly, but the deal is, I'll show you the way you've got to do the hard work. You know, there's no magic bullet. This doesn't happen by osmosis. You've got to do the practicing, you've got to do the hard work. And that's what we've just done today through several one-to-ones and the webinar for the Stage 2 Online Assessment Centre. And yesterday afternoon, we did an awesome interview webinar as well. Every week we're doing these webinars, make all the difference. Anyway, folks, there you go. Hopefully that's helped. Let me see some loves and likes. Has that helped? Or it might have left a few of you a bit confused and disorientated, but that's okay. We just need to work through it. Let me know if this has been useful. A few shout outs to those of you who just joined. So Keelan, Ben, Michael and Steve just joined. I'm sorry if you've just joined. I'm about to go now, but hopefully it's been useful for you. I shall catch up with you soon, folks. Take care, keep practicing, and look after yourselves. Take care now. Bye-bye.